Most of you think the version of Apex that runs on Switch looks like this, but I've come to find out it's truly a weird, broken mess with dedicated players who do mind-blowing things to the game that I genuinely can't wrap my head around, despite it seeming like Respawn has completely abandoned the Switch version, as you'll come to find. But there's a weird thing about the Switch version of Apex. Season 1 to them was Season 8 for us. The game only came out in 2021, which was Season 8, so they actually never got access to a load of awesome skins that came out before that, although when it did come out, everybody on Switch got an exclusive Pathfinder skin that you can only own if you have a Switch account, so this skin quickly became the skin of, if you see them, rush them because they're a noob. But the game released in a really bad position, it had loads of glitches, terrible performance, and it seemingly never gained a big player base despite Respawn really pushing for it. But that's what it looks like on the surface, but when you look into it, it gets really weird, because on Twitter the other day I was scrolling through and saw somebody upload a Switch montage recorded on their phone with Chinese hard bass in the background, which is just the coolest thing I've ever seen. So immediately I made a tweet about it, and a few people informed me of the weird world of the Switch community. And it does get weird, and somehow some of them do some impossible stuff. I do not understand it. But there's one thing you need to know about the Switch community. They are heavily handicapped. Their game only runs at 30 FPS on 720p, and they cannot go over 70 FOV. This is 70 FOV, and then this is 100, 110, what people normally play at. They are stuck permanently zoomed in. But despite all of this, people still play it, and actually, weirdly enough, the main group of people that play it are Japanese players. This can mainly be found out by most of the Switch gameplay uploaded to YouTube is from Japanese players, and almost every single Predator player on Switch is Japanese, and you'll come to find some weird stuff about the Pred Switch community. Honestly, it gets weird. And because of this, the Tokyo servers have become literally the only Apex Switch server that actually has people on it. So if you want to play ranks, or even pubs, and you live in America or Europe, you're gonna have to play on Japan servers and endure the terrible ping. There's actually a pretty cool Switch YouTuber I found that plays Apex on Switch, and they are in America, and they have to exclusively run Tokyo servers pretty much. They've complained about this a few times, but I don't think it's ever getting fixed because you just need more players to fix it. But this guy here is an Apex Switch visionary. He plays Apex on Switch in a way only 0.1% of other Switch players do, because his gameplay is different to everyone else's because he plays in 120 field of view, which, may I remind you, is impossible on Nintendo Switch because by default it's locked at 70. This is his explanation on how he got it.
I play, the FOV is glitched or whatever from someone that helped me get it.
But that is just the start of weird ways Switch players play Apex, because they have a method of playing that will blow any console player's mind. It's gyro aim, which is aiming with the motion of your controller. The reason a lot of Switch players play with gyro aim is because in the Splatoon Pro community, pretty much every single pro plays with gyro aim. They assist and micro adjust their aim by tilting their controller in certain ways. So this kind of transferred to Apex when it came out, and a lot of the Switch community then applied this to Apex, which means a lot of Switch players are genuinely cracked at aiming because they have that extra little micro adjustment on it. And that is one of the benefits of opening Apex up to a new community. They invent new strategies for the game. You could gyro aim on a PlayStation controller right now and potentially improve your aim tenfold. A few people have tried this, and I think it could genuinely benefit a lot of people. And it wouldn't have really been introduced to Apex if it wasn't for the Switch community. There are a few players right now who do play on gyro and make it their main gimmick, so I would keep an eye on them because they may genuinely be leading the next wave of controller players. And also there's a guy that games on one Joy-Con purely with gyro aim. It's insane. I'm going to move on. Also, I think tap strafing may be possible on Switch with a modded Switch. There have been rumors, but honestly, I can't really find any evidence of this at all. Although I don't doubt it because the Switch community is kind of insane. And also, in case you're wondering how small the Switch community actually is, here's a great way to kind of visualize it. You know there's only 750 Preds per console. Well, in some seasons, even a month into the season, there's been points where 0 people have Predator yet on Switch, which is kind of funny, but that's not the weirdest thing that's happened in the Switch Predator space. I've actually checked in on them in a few times in the past, and I have found weird patterns in their leaderboards. For example, at points it seems like there's been one person that has made multiple accounts that have hit Pred on Switch, which is very confusing, and to this day I still do not understand what was going on, whether one guy was just going insane grinding, or there was something a bit more suspicious going on. And also today, on a quick glaze over of the Pred leaderboards on Switch, I did find out there's a few players who have a 95% RP gain rate, although I don't really want to blame him for anything because at the end of the day on Switch you're just fighting infants. But like I said prior, most of the Preds are from Japan, and Japan seems like the only place you can really queue ranked if you do play it on Switch, which is kind of a shame. And this is where we get into the bad side of the Switch community, because some of it can be blamed on Respawn and some of it can be blamed on the Switch genuinely being a really bad piece of hardware for modern standards. Because as mentioned prior, the game consistently looks and runs bad and is really a bad victim to glitches. For example, over the last few years there's been a few standout crazy glitches, like skins doing this. This has been a big complaint of YouTubers and Switch players alike. It happened a lot apparently. Also, at some points in the past, there was a glitch that turned all of the water purple on Storm Point. Not a clue how that one managed to come about. And several times in the last year, purely to Switch players, their account levels have been reset by some mysterious glitch, and Respawn have taken absolutely ages to respond to this. Obviously, because there's not many of them, they're quite low when a big glitch like that comes up on Respawn's ladder of care, which is honestly understandable because at the end of the day, if something like that happened on Xbox, you have to get it fixed in a day. But it does make Switch seem like a genuinely abandoned port of Apex. And this is where we get into the most recent glitch. It kind of made me make this video because in the Harbingers update, it went pretty smoothly for most of us, right? It was a pretty decent update with no major issues, unless you're a Switch player, because if you played Switch, for some reason, some insane reason, loads of people's screens just became blurry and their games looked terrible. And it's been like that for a few weeks for some people, and Respawn haven't fixed it. And I guarantee you haven't heard of this. If this happened on Xbox, you would have heard of it, but you haven't because it's a Switch community and they're kind of getting ignored because there's not many of them. And once again, they're not high on Respawn's pay attention list because this blurry glitch isn't fixed several weeks into the Harbingers update. Like, bro, the event is ending tomorrow and it's still broken. But despite all of this, I think Switch has the biggest potential for the future of Apex Legends. Because if you're a console player who wants to move away from your console, you may have heard of this little rumor, and I mean it's a tiny rumor that no one's really heard of, called cross progression release into Apex. Yes, cross progression, everybody wants it, and you can probably see where this segue is going. Because if cross progression came out and you played Xbox or something but left the house a lot, maybe you work away from home, maybe you have school away from home, the Switch will become your ultimate tool. You could play Apex on the fly and level up and do your challenges and do your battle passes, which will be a really awesome application. You could literally play Apex on the toilet if you didn't want to hop on Xbox. So I think the ultimate savior and new redemption of the Apex Switch version would be cross progression. But alas, if you have been keeping in the cross progression loop, it's kind of been slow. We have got new stuff in the files for it, but we haven't heard any direct news from Respawn, and honestly we have no idea whether it could come out next week or next year. But honestly, despite all the disastrous things that have happened and come from the Apex Switch port, I think there's still genuinely potential in this, and maybe in the next generation of Nintendo consoles, Apex could become a genuine handheld contender. I'm unsure to the actual resources the Switch version takes from Respawn, because I could genuinely see a potential theory of Respawn shutting this down, considering there's that little people playing that only one server works, although I won't theorize on that. Still, overall, the Switch community has been a net positive, and maybe one day we can see a widespread adaptation of these gyro controls, which the community has kind of pioneered, which I think is really cool. So do you think you're going to give the Switch version or gyro controls a try, and have you ever had a weird experience with the Switch version? And subscribe for more content like this.